Ask Reddit by John Ryan Fan. If HBO's Chernobyl was a series with a new disaster every season, what event would you like to see covered? The Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire in 1911. 150 died, most of them young women, because the doors were locked to prevent workers from taking breaks and inventory and they couldn't leave the building. This sparked outrage and spurred the development of many work safety standards we have today. Would have been a tragic show but interesting to see how it changed the safety of work in the West. The owners of the building escaped alive via the roof and were indicted for manslaughter, got off with paying a fine, and then were found to have locked the doors at their next factory as well. Wikipedia, https://en.m.wiki.triangle_shirtwaist_factory_fire . Really puts the old adage that OSHA work safety regulations are written in blood into context. The Kyshtym disaster, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Kyshtym_disaster . Only Chernobyl and Fukushima have ranked as worse incidents, but Kyshtym affected 4x as many people. Because of the secrecy surrounding the facility, nobody was told anything about it until a week later when soldiers suddenly showed up and started slaughtering all the livestock and burning everything, not telling all the people why they were being rounded up and evacuated. They said it was a special disease. Some other people weren't evacuated for a year or more. Another disaster that I learned through this post. Had no idea about it previously. I would like the 1917 Canadian blast, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Halifax, the largest man-made explosion until nuclear bombs in 1945. Not so much for the blast but for the rebuilding and dealing with it. Was also going to say the Halifax explosion. And X-200B. There could be some really emotional stuff with the way Boston provided relief. The train dispatcher, Vince Coleman, who managed to warn an incoming train, 700 passengers, to stop before the city, but died from his injuries from the explosion. The politics of why the munitions ship wasn't flying the correct flags. The little girl who froze to death waiting overnight for someone to take her home. Triangle Shirtwaist fire in 1911. I feel like this is being lost in time, yet it has more historical importance than other disasters listed here. TSF is the basis of modern workplace safety, union organizing and more. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/triangle_shirtwaist_factory_fire. The Costa Concordia, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Costa_Concordia . The mixture of incredibly brave and competent people vs the idiot captain and the spectacular nature the disaster itself would make for some damn incredible television. I'd love to see lots of different perspectives on it. Have you heard the radio between the captain and I believe it was the Coast Guard? The captain's a real dinghouse. Deleted. I wish someone would have told this story last year during the provincial election campaign. Instead we heard about how bad raid days and cancelling gas plants were. I remember hearing about Walkerton the day the entire town got sick. It was eerie, an entire town just sick for no reason. Now it's not eerie. It's infuriating. And mark my words, we're heading for something similar soon. That's what bad, incompetent governments do. On that note, I recommend watching the ESPN 3430 documentary on the Hillsborough Stadium disaster, https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Hillsborough_disaster . Edit. I see a lot of Liverpool fans commenting on this. Those of you who read our soccer might recognize me as an Apolista. but I have nothing but sympathy for Merseyside regarding one of the darkest days in football history. Non sare me sola, you'll never walk alone. What bothered me most about this is that the blame was completely put on the people that died. They were called hooligans, despite the fact that there were a million signs that showed that poor design and poor management led to this instead. I mean, they knowingly let in more people than what was considered maximum capacity. Craig Mazin's Twitter was inundated for a while with Indians asking him to do a series on Bhopal. For those interested in Bhopal, the Yes Men pulled a pretty amazing prank to call attention to the issue by going on the news imitating Dow Chemical and promising that they would finally pay for the disaster. Their stock dropped quite a bit and Dow Chemical had to go on the news and explain, "I know we are not paying for the Bhopal disaster." Halifax explosion. Despite living here, I didn't even think of that one as an option. For shame. Great suggestion. Johnstown. John Goodman needs to play Jim Jones before it's too late. Please someone tell him. The Great Fire of London. Edit. Thanks for Silver Nice Stranger. What about the Great Beer Flood of London? The Exxon Valdez oil spill. There's a series of episodes of American Scandal that almost scratch the surface of the shit that went down. Edit. I'd like to add, yes, there is a movie that was made in 1992 for HBO, Dead Ahead, as has been pointed out in the comments, which I definitely need to watch. I do think that there's quite a bit more that can be covered than in 90 or so minutes, and in a serial format like the OP asked. Maybe not 5-6 hours like Chernobyl, but enough for 3-4 healthy episodes. Imo. Challenger. Sesame Street is on HBO now, so they could totally go into how Big Bird was nearly on the Challenger flight. https://www.history.com/news/big-bad-challenger-disaster-nasa-sesame-street close bracket. The tsunami in Thailand in 2004. There's a really good film about it, but the name is escaping me right now. However, highly recommended. Edit. Was most definitely talking about the impossible. Maybe I'll watch it tonight. BP oil spill. We're sorry. The bombing of Black Wall Street. Deleted. The Great Fire of Rome, with as much historical accuracy as possible, and the aftermath too, or they could just make a high budget, book accurate new version of Quo Vadis. That would work too. HBO already had a miniseries about Rome with much emphasis on historical accuracy, and it's amazing. The Donner Party. I just read the fantastic book The Indifferent Stars Above and Their Winter in the Mountains was one of the most harrowing crazy fucking things I've ever read about. The Spanish flu in 1918. The Great Storm that hit Galveston in 1900. Incredible damage, 6,000-12,000 people died. It remains America's worst natural disaster. Lots of personal accounts to go on too. Deleted. The Aberfan disaster, 1966. Deleted. Tiananmen Square massacre. Why would you want a TV series about absolutely nothing else? Emu War. It could be about how the Australians tried to cover it up to save face until the news got out. The Maguindanao massacre. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Maguindanao_massacre closed bracket dart. A convoy of 6 vehicles carrying at least 34 journalists, lawyers, and relatives of the vice mayor of the town Datu Unsay, was stopped by 100 armed men, who abducted and later killed most or all of its members. There is evidence that at least 5 of the female victims, 4 of them journalists, were raped before being killed, while practically all of the women had been shot in their genitals and beheaded. All of them were buried, including the vehicles. Not really the kind of disaster you're talking about, but all the shit going on in Enron leading up to it imploding. There is one. It's called Enron, the smartest guys in the room. Hurricane Katrina. Edit. Thank you, loving the conversation. I want a whole episode about Anderson Cooper looking at that lady in shock and dismay saying, how can you say things are going well? Look around you. The 1992 LA riots. It could be awesome. LA riots. That's my go-to inappropriate sports team name. Keeping with the theme of radiation, I would like to see a season about the aftermath of the Hiroshima bomb. Mount St. Helens eruption. As a Washingtonian, I would love to see this. Fukushima. This definitely seems like a logical next disaster for them to cover. Hindenburg would be awesome, but I doubt it would make a full 5-hour miniseries. But awesome nonetheless. I would love to see something on the Spanish flu pandemic. Over 50 million people dead in the span of a year, with some guesses up to 100 million, 50% of all people in the entire world coming down with the flu at some point in that time. Most deaths occurring to those between 18 and 40. The symptom of cryonisis, skin turning black due to lack of oxygen, making people think it is a new Black Death as their own immune system was destroying their lungs, causing odds the same way that mustard gas was to soldiers on the front. One expert even saying that it might cause the end of civilization, and yet after a few years people just forgot. That shit is whack, man. Just the fact that places like Philadelphia became ghost towns overnight and lost something like 7,000 people a week for 3 weeks in a row. I want to see something on this, man. The 100-year anniversary of the month with the most deaths. Please. I've been doing full-time research on this lately and I need someone to agree with me that this is interesting beyond the simple historic sense. Pompeii. AYYAOAYOH. I don't know if this really counts as a disaster, but the great stock market crash of 1929 leading to the Depression. This one, as it happened close to where I live. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/fireworks_disaster. The Haiti earthquake 2010. The Columbia disaster. Engineers were begging management to seek access to surveillance resources to check the status of the damaged wing after reviewing the launch. Even after the disaster, very smart people denied that the foam could have done it until enough prodding made them rig up a simulation to test it in Ballum. The space shuttle was designed to eventually have a catastrophic failure. It ended up having two, including Challenger, another story where an engineer knew it would blow up, and it did, and sadly it killed 14 astronauts in the process. Game of Thrones Season 8. Who would play our free folk though? The Johnstown flood. The Brumadinho Dam disaster. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Brumadinho_dam_disaster . The eruption of Krakatoa. MH370, although it would be hard to write as that mystery is still ongoing. Pretty crazy a plane can disappear with today's technology and we still only have theories as to what happened. The world oceans are that large, I guess. Check out the recent article in The Atlantic on this. It's stunning. Either the Loma Prieta or Northridge earthquakes. Man, I would really love to learn more about Redacted. Yeah, but Redacted would never let that happen. They are just too powerful. The Chicago fire.